Now, today we're going to be discussing a major milestone in Ethiopia's economic journey. Last month, Ethiopian Securities Exchange had successfully closed its capital raising exercise, and about 1.51 billion Ethiopian birr, that's about $26.6 million, was raised in capital, exceeding expectations by 240%. Joining us is Mr. Tilahun Kasahun, Chief Executive Officer, Ethiopian Securities Exchange, ESX. Good afternoon, sir. It's good to have you on the program.
Good afternoon, Will. Good to have you as well.
Mr. Kasahun, first of all, congratulations on exceeding your capital raising target by 240%. We started this conversation in January, I remember clearly, and it's been quite a journey in between roadshows across Addis Ababa, Nairobi, and London. You set out to raise 631 million Ethiopian birr, but ended up with 1.51 billion birr. What does this achievement mean for Ethiopia's first securities exchange? Do you attribute this success to the confidence of investors in the ESX?
Thanks, Will. Yes, exactly. It's perhaps very much exciting milestone for us, and it's a pleasure to be with you today to talk about this. At least, when we were talking in January, I must say we were very much confident we'll raise the capital that we want, but we do not expect to exceed it by this much. And I think it's perhaps a testimony of the fact that investors, as well as other players in the capital markets ecosystem in Ethiopia, have perhaps voted through their investment for the successful launch of the exchange, more than their capital and investment contributions. I think it's also a result of perhaps a broader consensus that's built around the exchange across all the investors and all the stakeholder players. If you see, especially our investor base, it cuts across both financial and non-financial institutions, including foreign investors, including the Nigerian Exchange Group. So, broadly, I would say, it's a plus to have, both our banks, insurance companies, non-financial institutions that are domestic investors, but also foreign investors in the shareholder base of the exchange, and we're very much glad and I would say fortunate to have closed the capital raise successfully in a very short period of time.
Diverse investor base there. How do you see this diverse base of investors contributing to the growth of the ESX?
Good. I mean, I'm sure, especially looking at ASX from Nigeria, it's very much unique in a sense, compared to the Nigerian experience, where you have the Nigerian Exchange Group and also FMDQ and NASD. You will see ESX is trying to bring all three types of markets in one place. So perhaps especially the significant involvement of the financial institutions in Ethiopia. About 16 of all the major mature banks are investors. Around 12 insurance companies are investors in the exchange. This already tells you that our debt market, our fixed income market, would be in a very strong footing. And that's something that is very much particular and peculiar about the exchange, which is our intention to build a very strong debt market, fixed income market that serves financial sector players in Ethiopia. And one of the things that we want to do here is obviously be a platform for interbank money market. We would like to have a transparent repo market that would serve as a piping for our short to medium term debt instruments. And this is really important, and you cannot achieve a debt market without the involvement of banks. And we're very much happy that the majority of the Ethiopian commercial banks are part of our shareholder base. And the same thing is for our equity market. we start with the Ethiopian Investment Holding, government sovereign wealth fund that is playing the promoter role and playing a key foundational role for the exchange. 25% stake is allocated for government of Ethiopia through this Ethiopian Investment Holding. The Ethiopian Investment Holding brings with itself majority of the state-owned enterprises. So we're very much confident that most of these enterprises progressively will come and list on the exchange. As we speak, as of last month, EIH has made it official that about 6 of the state-owned enterprises will come and list on the exchange. We've been doing some preparatory work for the past few months around some of these SOEs. In addition to EIH and its subsidiaries, we have about 17 non-financial institutions that are mostly engaged in manufacturing service sector operation in Ethiopia that are also shareholders of the exchange. And I would say I think majority of these investors in one way or another look at ESX as a platform to raise capital, to reform, to change, and perhaps to revamp their corporate governance standards. So in a way, I think this is already a solid foundation being built for our listing pipeline. So very much, a kind of investor mix that you want to have while you are establishing an exchange.
And so what do you think is the most significant impact that the ESX will have on the overall growth, that's the Ethiopian economy, in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you project for, how do you see the ESX contributing to Ethiopia's growth?
So good question, right? So at the end of the day, exchanges will be measured not by the amount of capital they've raised, but by the amount of capital they help governments and private sector raise. So we measure our impact, one, on the way how we will create depth to the way government raises capital from domestic sources primarily, and also attract foreign investors, foreign portfolio investors into government instruments. To date, we do not have, very much mature experience around the space. We have very much limited issuance in terms of treasury bills by central bank. So we would like to diversify and deepen both the types of instruments that are issued, but also the types of investors that are participating in these instruments. For instance, you have hardly any retail participation, any mutual fund participation into these instruments. Very much, almost zero participation, foreign investor participation into this instrument. So that's something that we would like to see happen in the next 5 to 10 years. In fact, very much in a short period of time. It's the same logic for private sector, very much limited scope for private companies to raise equity capital. Currently, almost, we have about more than 2 million SMEs, business enterprises in Ethiopia, but limited to bank finance, self-financing, etc. Our equity markets, we have a very much informal, unregulated OTC market that has raised capital for the past 30, 40 years. And we would like to expand the space in a regulatory environment, attract and create confidence for domestic institutional investors, but also foreign investors. So, at the end of the day, our goal is to contribute to this huge financing gap that both government and the private sector have.
Okay, so you mentioned some challenges now, but are there any key challenges facing the ESX ahead of the launch in the last quarter of this year?
Yes, obviously. So as a young nascent market, the exchange cannot operate on its own. The past 2 years, government of Ethiopia established the Ethiopian Capital Markets Authority. The exchange is being set up as a public-private partnership. But at the end of the day, you need to have an ecosystem of players, service providers, investors that are coming along these two institutions and obviously playing in the market. I think one of our key challenges is attracting those service providers, especially at a time when Ethiopia never had a properly regulated capital markets environment. So all our security brokers, dealers, investment banks, etc., will be born new. Some of them are getting licenses. So that will be a key, capacity building program that we have to launch and implement. The other angle is obviously issuer readiness, huge appetite from private companies, public sector, municipalities to raise capital, but at the end of the day, their ability to deliver for investors in terms of transparency obligations, corporate governance, etc., will remain to be a constant challenge. It's something that the exchange have to actively work on, and in terms of developing the capacity. I think most importantly, the success of our capital markets would be, again, measured by the speed with which we develop the domestic institutional investor base and also create the right types of environment for foreign investors to actively come in and confidently invest into the market. So plenty of regulatory reforms that needs to happen and already are happening. And again, something that the exchange needs to actively work on and develop.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kalahun. Kasahun, we do know that when there are challenges, there are opportunities and opportunities for potential investors to come in. Thank you so much, Mr. Tilahun Kasahun, Chief Executive Officer, Ethiopian Securities Exchange, for coming on Business Incorporated.
Thank you for having me, Will.